And last night, we see the funeral of George Floyd in Houston, in the US. Very, very touching moment as well. And there are some guests having their own speech in remembering of George Floyd. And right now, Nad Bunnag has this story for us. It's very good time to remember the life of George Floyd, isn't it?
Definitely, and there are very powerful and touching speeches during the funeral of George Floyd. So we have a few quotes for you today. So let's start with the niece of George Floyd. Her name is Brooke Williams, who said that the death of George Floyd was not just a murder, but rather a hate crime. So let's have a listen.
Their officer showed no remorse while watching my uncle's soul leave his body. He begged and pleaded many times just for you to get up, but you just pushed harder. Why must this system be corrupt and broken? Laws were already put in place for the African American system to fail. These laws need to be changed. No more hate crimes, please. Someone said make America great again, but when has America ever been great?
So based on her speech, we can hear that she demanded the change of laws, which is believed to be a disadvantage for the Black Americans. She also demanded the elimination of hate crime against African Americans as well. There is also another remarkable speech by this person. So we could not forget this person because he is the one who actually shared the grief with the George Floyd family. That is Vice President Joe Biden, who recorded a video message for this funeral.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to deal with the denial, the promise of this nation to so many people for so long. It's about who we are, what we believe, and maybe most importantly, who we want to be, to ensure that all men and women are not only created equal,
and no words from Trump.
No. So very touching speech from Joe Biden here, but he also said that when there is justice for George Floyd, we will truly be on our way to racial justice in the United States here.
So that must be quite powerful, and he must have got support, especially from African American community.
Definitely a huge support for Joe Biden here after he actually visited the family the other day, and we can see that there's outpouring support for him because of the incident.
Yeah. And what about civil rights activists? They must be joining the funeral quite a lot.
Yes, there's a very long speech from Reverend Al Sharpton, who praised George Floyd for being the big change in society, not just in the United States, but he actually changed the whole world. Let's have a listen.
To do his will. If George Floyd had been an Ivy League school graduate and one of these ones with a long title, we would have been accused of reacting to his prominence. If he'd been a multimillionaire, they would have said that we were reacting to his wealth. If he had been famous athlete, as he was on the trajectory to be, we would have said we were reacting to his fame. But God took an ordinary brother from the third ward, from the housing projects that nobody thought much about but those that knew him and loved him. He took the rejected stone, the stone that the builder rejected. They rejected him for jobs. They rejected him for positions. They rejected him to play certain teams. God took the rejected stone and made him the cornerstone of a movement that's going to change the whole wide world.
The key word here is the rejected stone that has become the cornerstone of such a big movement that's going to change the whole world, which is the Black Lives Matter movement. So we can see that not just in the States, but many countries around the world, we're standing up against racial injustice.
Yeah, that's very moving moment for people who support George Floyd cause, especially African American community. Definitely. But on the other hand, we see violence happening, especially in taking down statues in the UK.
Yes, in the UK as well as in Belgium. But let's focus on the United Kingdom because there have been many statues that have been toppled down, taken down because of the anger towards the death of George Floyd. So the notable statue here is the statue of Robert Milligan, who was a notorious slave trader, which has been taken down in London. And this came after the mayor, Sadiq Khan, announced that they will review all statues and street names in London. And if any statue or any street name is linked with slavery, they have to go. And Mr. Khan also believes that London shouldn't be commemorating or memorializing people who were slave traders as well.
He also said that it was said that the wealth of the country was built on slave trade. I mean, it's a very powerful statement indeed.
It's a sad truth, but we can see that they're all taking action so that they're making a change in society and taking down these statues that were slave traders or slave kings as well. So that's a big change for the UK here.
Yeah. How interesting that the repercussion of George Floyd doesn't limit to the US only, but it's right now spread to many countries around the world.
That's right. And in UK especially, the local communities and councils are in the process of reviewing all the statues and to see their appropriateness, whether they should be there where they are at the moment or not, especially those that are linked to past history, like the one that you're talking about.
It's like big moment of revision of history, especially during colonialism. Colonial history.
And on Sunday, the statue of Edward Colston, probably the biggest slave traders of that age, was also toppled and thrown into the river in Bristol.
Yes.
And so angrily as well, because all the protesters just marveled around the statue and just took down that statue. So that means it's a good signal for all of us that everything needs to change and we should stop commemorating the slave traders.
That's what you're seeing on the screen right now. Edward Colston may be known to most people as a philanthropist, right? A very, very good philanthropist and a businessman who brought wealth and prosperity to England. But in fact, he was one of the biggest slave traders in history. He belonged to this company called Royal African Company, which virtually had monopoly over slave trade in Western Africa in the 17th, 18th centuries. And his company, the Royal African Company, is believed to have been responsible for smuggling as many as 80,000 Africans to be sent to British colonies in the Caribbean, in Americas, and to work in sugarcane plantation and in sugar factories under very harsh conditions.
And the sad truth here is that for slave traders back in the past, they don't think of these people as people or human beings, but they see those slaves as commodities, and that's a very sad truth.
Yeah.